Two of the most important things of my life. One is automation and second is optimization. And this video I'm going to talk about optimization. So here, welcome back to the late night khud. This is 2nd May 2023, 10:22 p.m. and we're doing this out of circumstances because I did record this whole session and it was very nice. Like, it was flowing very well and everything was amazing. But after the fact, I realized that after 47 seconds, by mistake, I pressed stop recording on OBS and so the video didn't get recorded. No worries, you can do it again. It's just a revision of sorts. Now, what is the optimization I've done here? The optimization is the fact that inside my viewport, let me just turn off wireframe. It's getting a bit scary out here. So inside my viewport, I have these little geometry nodes setups, character proxy. Okay, this is our protagonist Ahana. I can just come in here and switch the proxy toggle on and off, and what this does is it toggles on the entire mesh, which is high poly, with all the textures and everything intact in it. And this is all happening in the viewport. Okay, you see the render is unaffected by this. The point of this entire exercise is to make sure that your viewport performance is increased a lot, right? And let me just show you what I can do with this. Like, if I make it a proxy, right, if I was to animate her, I would come in here and I would let's imagine I would do a pose like this. Okay, let me just stay in solid mode. If I would come in here and then come into my proxy and disable this, you would see that it has affected as if we had the entire mesh with all the geometry and all the hair particles and stuff in it. But it's just that for the viewport, we're using a lower quality mesh. And I'm going to show you how that works. And there is this little node tree that you have to use. And I'm going to save this actually so that I don't have to recreate it again. But some things will go missing here. Anyway, I want to show how I've created this. So, or actually it makes sense if I do it for another character instead of Ahana here. And we'll just shift the camera to that part. So these things you see here, one big news is the fact that I have gotten the human generator add-on for Blender, the commercial license, meaning that I can use all the digital assets and everything from this add-on for commercial projects, for personal projects, doesn't matter anything. And I'm feeling more bankrupt than ever having paid the cost for the add-on, but I am very sure it's going to be a very valuable investment. So it allows you to do batch generation where you can just come in here, shift A, human generator, and you cannot see my screen completely. So it allows you to shift A, human generator, and add whatever you want, a pose, standing around. So let's just do a standing one so it's easier to like visualize. So these are like socializing creatures. I'm just going to select this and go into the end panel for human generator. Now just generate one human. We have to give it a clothing, let's say office clothing, expression, natural hair. You can use particle hair or hair cards, but I know as a matter of fact that these characters here are just going to be in the wide shot, and so we don't need a lot of detailing. So I'm going to use hair cards instead. Hair cards are basically like not as heavy as particle systems. I think they have some low poly mesh or something. Height variation, this doesn't matter because we're just only one. And for texture, I'm going to go to performance, the lowest one. Because let's just roll this, generate one human, and this will take some time, and it should, yeah. So you have a human here which is generated by the human generator add-on. I love this add-on, it's beautiful. It makes life so much easier than what it would have been. The only thing is like the hair cards, I'm not a very big fan of them, but that's okay. Yeah, the cloth is always a thing, like the mesh is always protruding out of the cloth, like you see here as well. But these are very easy fixes. Like for here in this instance, you just select your t-shirt and I say Alt S to scale it a little along the normals, and that should okay, this is looking very weird. Let's not do Alt S, let's just do a regular scale, and that's still looking a bit weird, but okay, she's anyways not going to be visible. She's just there in the master shot. Alright, now coming to the process, I'm going to come in here into geometry nodes and I'm going to make, this is my viewport here. Now I'm going to go to my material preview just so you see the original mesh. Now one important thing here is the fact that if I was to select the rig, the armature, Mariam, HG Mariam, and I open this here, what happens is all of the meshes that are part of this character in the add-on, they are parented to the meta rig like a normal parent situation would be. So one thing that I learned is you can come in here and you can select all of these and you can add it into a collection. Okay, so in my outliner you see a bunch of collections here. Character proxy, I'm just going to shut this for a while. I'm going to open character meshes. I'm going to enable its viewport display. Okay, so character meshes has all these meshes. Let me just make a new collection here. I'm going to call it, what is this person's name? Miriam mesh. Okay, Miriam mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select all of these and I'm going to put into a collection inside character meshes, Miriam mesh. Now one very amazing thing that Blender does is it does not take anything out of context here. So initially I thought maybe if I put it into another collection I will have to reparent things and reparent the armature and everything, but it keeps all these as like instances just grayed out from here, meaning to say that it's not actually here, it's somewhere else, which is amazing. So this here is my actual mesh. Now what I want is a low poly version of this mesh which I'm going to replace when I'm inside my viewport. That's the agenda for the day. So let me go into this mesh, and as a human I know that for this human I don't need a convex hull. It'll do like a very weird kind of thing on top of it. So what I need instead is to take the body mesh and use this as like you saw in the beginning, those alien kind of things. So I'm going to shift D and right click leave in place, and I'm just going to rename this as Miriam low poly mesh, and I'm going to drag it into my low poly mesh collection over here. So right now it's shut. Let me just switch it on and let me just let it be. That's not needed. Now we don't need the main collection. I'm going to shut this. I have a little more space, and here you go. This I'm going to solo it and go into my solid view. Now by default there are a lot of things that have come with the mesh. The one thing that you need definitely is the armature. You can remove all the particle systems. We don't need hair in this. We're trying to make it low poly. You can remove all the masks, so that will bring back the mesh of the human. Now you see here this is actually pretty low poly by itself, like there aren't like a lot of vertices and everything, but we're talking about background characters which are not going to be very important, and it's all about optimization, so we can make this better, like the geometry can be lesser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a decimate modifier to this. So Q decimate. Currently the count of vertex face count is 25,000. I'm going to make this 0.1, so that comes down to 4,771, and I'm not going to apply this modifier because you can't apply modifiers with shape keys on it, and human generator push shape keys for like if you want to use the built-in expressions and stuff. So I'm just going to keep it though like as a modifier. It's completely all right. Now once that is figured, we have the low poly mesh. Okay, I'm going to come in here and apply this to our optimization purpose. So let me just come in here and I'm just going to say Shift S, cursor is selected, and where's this gizmo here? Okay, here I'm just going to add a plane. You can add anything, doesn't matter, it's going to be deleted anyways, and I'm going to rename this as Miriam underscore proxy. Okay, and this you're going to add it into character proxy. Yeah, so here your character proxy has Miriam proxy. Now to this I am going to add the simplify, one of these simplify things, but let me see if I can try and recreate it from scratch. So I'm going to add here another new node 3 and remove the node input because we don't need the plane. I'm going to rename this as simplify underscore Miriam. Now what do we need here? We actually need two things. One is the high poly mesh. So character meshes, Miriam mesh, this is the high poly mesh. This is going to be the geometry. I'm going to set it to relative so that it's not going around anywhere. And I need the Miriam low poly mesh. So I'm going to come in here and take the low poly mesh. This is what we're going to replace it with. Let me just set that as well to relative. Now let's just say that we have, I'm going to alt shift to this as the high poly one. Okay, this is what we have. Now before I do anything, one thing that is important for this situation, this whole thing to work, is the fact that the character meshes, they need to be invisible in the, like this entire collection needs to be invisible in the viewport but visible in the render. Okay, and character low poly mesh needs to be visible in the viewport but invisible in the render, and character proxy needs to be visible in the viewport and needs to be invisible in the, actually character low poly mesh, this you could even put it outside, like here low poly mesh, you don't really need it, so I could turn this off as well. Yeah, this could stay like off for both because we're just instancing it in the GeoNode 3. Now over here you just have this Miriam proxy. Okay, Miriam proxy is instancing the high quality mesh, and this very weird thing happens, like it's happened a couple of times. I am not quite sure why, where this little thing here comes to this part, select these and say shift S selection to cursor. Okay, so going back to our proxy GeoNodes, I've gotten the two things that I need. Now here I need a switch node. I'm going to come in here and shift S switch and put it here. Now what this should do is when I hit switch on, it will just turn it off, like it's as good as a, what do you say, turning the opacity 0, because there is nothing in the true right now. If this was true, I want this to show instead. Okay, so I think I can just plug this in here. Yeah, so what has happened, yeah, is my low poly mesh. So when I click this switch, I am switching from the character with the entire like clothing and everything to a, with like a higher denser density, you can't go into edit mode because it's actually an instance, to a low poly mesh, which is, let me just stay in the solid mode. So this switch is exactly what we're doing. Now the thing is, we don't need to do that, we don't want to do that switch here, so we just use a condition which says is viewport, and we plug that into the switch here. So this is in viewport, this will be this, and if it's not, then if it's in the render, like over here, I'll just show you right now, if it's in the render, then it will be the original high poly mesh. You want to somehow be able to access this over here, right? So you're going to add a boolean math and put it here. So if something and something is happening, then you do this, and I would need an input node, group input node, and I'm going to add my boolean here, and going to end panel and rename this to proxy. So now toggling this on and off, when you toggle it on, it is the low poly mesh, and you toggle it off, it's the high poly mesh. Okay, now this is working, this is exactly all that was needed. Let me just make it a fake user. Fake user helps when you like shut down Blender and then, you know, come back like, where did my things go? Yeah, so this is the basic node setup. There isn't anything complicated here. We are basically replacing things here and there. Now let me just take one of the cameras that I have here so that I can render something out. And this camera and this, I'm gonna take it a little up. Okay, so we've got a camera set up. I'm gonna go back to my GeoNodes, and here if I hit render, you're gonna see my render is running in the image editor. You see nothing. Yeah, that is because the thing that I said in the beginning, character proxy is gonna be visible in the viewport but hidden in the render. Character meshes will be hidden in the viewport, but they'll be visible in the final render. Yep. So in the render you are seeing the textures and everything applied, but in my viewport I just have this little mesh. And even in my viewport, if I want to come in here and just toggle things on and on, I can do that. On or off, I can do that. And I can come into my pose mode, and because we still have the armature applied, I can rotate. You see, this lag is what I'm talking about. Here that I'm trying to animate it, there is already a bit of lag. Why? Because we have all the textures and all the materials and everything applied to it. Instead, if I use my proxy functionality, so on this mesh, if you try to rotate it, you see it's a lot more responsive, it's a lot more quicker, and that's where the entire optimization is coming into place. And then I can obviously come in here and re-render it, and so even though in the viewport it's looking like this, in the final render we are actually going to get how the final render should be. So it took a little longer than I thought, 20 minutes, and I'm just going to put this video unedited because I really don't have the strength to edit this video now. That was it. That was pretty much all I did today. Now one thing I have to learn is camera culling by using geometry nodes in one of Erendel's tutorials. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And yeah, this is one thing that I want to document is I am at an exceptionally grateful position in life right now where this is a project that I'm doing for the full-time job and I get paid for this, and this is exactly what I want to learn. So I'm learning all the things that I really want to learn about character animation, building scenes and telling stories and everything inside 3D, and it's part of my job, and everything is going very, very smooth at this point in time. So it's all trying to count my blessings at this point. Anyway, thank you so much for being in the late night khud. I will catch you tomorrow. Peace.